What if I told you that the most dangerous transformation an empath can undergo isn't learning to set boundaries, but becoming so self-aware that they can decode human behavior in real time? Stay with me, because what happens when an empath develops this level of consciousness will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about emotional intelligence and psychological power. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why this evolution makes them absolutely untouchable. Here's what most people don't realize. Self-awareness for an empath isn't just understanding their own emotions. It's something far more complex and, frankly, far more powerful. Carl Jung called it the process of individuation, but for empaths it becomes something else entirely. It becomes the ability to see the invisible architecture of human interaction, the hidden motives, the unconscious patterns, the unspoken agendas that govern every single exchange. You see, when an empath starts doing deep psychological work, something extraordinary happens. They don't just heal their wounds. They study them. They analyze why they attracted certain people. They examine why they tolerated certain behaviors. They dissect every relationship pattern until they understand the psychological mechanics behind human connection. And once they understand, they can never unsee it. Listen carefully to what happens when an empath reaches this level of self-awareness. They start noticing things that make others uncomfortable. They see through social performances. They detect incongruence between words and energy. They recognize manipulation tactics before they're fully deployed. It's like they've downloaded a psychological operating system that runs constant background analysis on every interaction. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. This isn't paranoia. This isn't cynicism. This is what researchers call heightened pattern recognition combined with emotional intelligence. The self-aware empath has become a human lie detector, not through judgment, but through pure observation. And this makes them incredibly uncomfortable to be around for anyone operating from a false self. Carl Jung understood something profound about consciousness. He discovered that as we become more aware of our own shadow, we simultaneously become more aware of others' shadows. The deeply self-aware empath has done this work completely. They've faced their own manipulation tactics, their own defense mechanisms, their own ways of avoiding truth. And now they can spot these exact same patterns in everyone around them. Here's what happens next, and it will send chills down your spine. The self-aware empath starts seeing relationships for what they truly are, not what they pretend to be. They notice who only calls when they need something. They recognize who loves the idea of them, but not the reality. They detect who keeps them around as an emotional support system while offering nothing in return. And once you see these patterns clearly, you can't participate in them unconsciously anymore. But here's the part that absolutely changes everything. The self-aware empath doesn't become cold or closed off. They simply become selective. Deliberately, consciously, strategically selective. Jung observed that wisdom isn't the absence of feeling, but the integration of feeling with knowledge. This empath embodies that perfectly. They still feel deeply, but now they choose wisely where to direct that depth. What happens in social situations is what I call the authenticity filter. The self-aware empath can no longer engage in superficial small talk with the same enthusiasm. They can't pretend to care about drama that doesn't matter. They can't fake interest in conversations designed purely to fill silence, not because they're being rude, but because their consciousness simply won't allow them to participate in inauthenticity anymore. Listen to this carefully, because this is where people start feeling uncomfortable around them. The self-aware empath asks questions that cut through surface pleasantries. They make observations that reveal what people are trying to hide. They remain silent when others expect agreement. They speak truth when others expect validation. And this makes them both magnetic and terrifying. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But he also understood that this authenticity makes you incompatible with those still living in illusion. The deeply self-aware empath experiences this incompatibility constantly. Old friendships fade because the empath can no longer pretend dynamics are healthy when they're not. Family relationships become strained because the empath stops playing their assigned role in dysfunctional patterns. But here's the absolutely mind-blowing part. This isolation isn't loneliness, it's liberation. The self-aware empath discovers that being alone with their truth is infinitely more peaceful than being surrounded by people they have to diminish themselves to accommodate. They learn that quality of connection matters far more than quantity. They understand that one authentic relationship outweighs 100 superficial ones. What researchers have discovered about this level of self-awareness will redefine everything you thought you knew about empathy. The self-aware empath develops what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold multiple truths simultaneously. They can understand why someone behaves badly, while also refusing to tolerate it. They can feel compassion for someone's pain, while maintaining firm boundaries. They can see someone's potential, while accepting their current reality. Here's what this looks like in practice. The self-aware empath stops over-functioning in relationships. They notice when they're working harder to maintain a connection than the other person. They recognize when they're being used as a therapist rather than treated as a friend. They detect when someone is keeping them around for supply rather than genuine care. And they respond not with anger, but with distance. Strategic, intentional, permanent distance. But here's where the real power emerges. The self-aware empath becomes immune to gaslighting. Because they've studied their own psyche so thoroughly, they trust their perceptions completely. When someone tries to make them doubt their reality, they don't spiral into confusion. They simply recognize the manipulation tactic and dismiss both it and the person deploying it. Carl Jung understood that self-knowledge is the ultimate form of power. The person who knows themselves completely cannot be told who they are. The deeply self-aware empath has reached this state. They know their triggers. They understand their patterns. They've mapped their entire psychological landscape. So when someone tries to project onto them, manipulate them, or control their narrative, it simply doesn't land. What happens in the long term is what I call the natural selection of relationships. The self-aware empath's life undergoes a massive reorganization. People who can't handle authenticity fall away. Those uncomfortable with being truly seen distance themselves. The users, the takers, the energy vampires all find excuses to leave. And the empath watches this exodus not with sadness but with relief. Because here's the final truth. What remains after this purge is pure gold. The people who stay are those who value depth, who appreciate honesty, who reciprocate energy, who show up authentically. The self-aware empath ends up with a smaller circle, yes, but one filled with genuine connections that nourish rather than drain. Jung called this process psychological maturity, but for the empath it's something more. It's the evolution from someone who feels everything to someone who understands everything they feel. From someone who absorbs energy to someone who discerns which energy deserves access. From someone who loves everyone to someone who loves wisely. When an empath becomes too self-aware, they don't lose their gift. They refine it, they don't become less compassionate, they become more discerning. They don't stop caring. They start caring about themselves equally. And this balance, this integration of empathy with awareness creates something unstoppable. Someone who can navigate the depths of human emotion while remaining anchored in their own truth. Someone who can hold space for others without losing themselves. Someone who can love deeply without abandoning their boundaries. This is what happens when an empath becomes too self-aware. They become psychologically sovereign, emotionally intelligent, and utterly, magnificently untouchable by manipulation. And once you reach this level of consciousness, there's no going back. Only forward into a life of authentic connection and profound peace. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it.